It's Mejia May.
Yo, what's up, you guys? It's your boy Danny Mejia, aka Mejia Made. Today, I'm gonna show y'all how to make a boom bap type beat and how to really nail in that boom bap swing. So, let's get into it. All right, y'all, so that was a beat right there. Let's start digging into the breakdown. The first thing we're gonna start off breaking down is the drums. So the first thing we have is this kick right over here. So the first key to getting that authentic boom bap feel is to not have everything quantized. So I zoomed in a little bit, and as y'all can see, a lot of the kicks are not quantized. Doesn't have a lot of that hard hitting low end. So what I ended up doing is I layered this kick with another kick. Let's go ahead and listen to what that sounds like. For this kick, what I ended up doing is literally just copy and pasting that first pattern onto this kick pattern right over here so that they can both sound at just one kick. So one thing I ended up doing to that first kick to take out that bottom end, what I did is deduct some low end all the way up to 90 hertz. And then for that second kick, what I ended up doing is bringing down a lot of that top end all the way down to 3.5 kilohertz. So that way, after the EQs, both of the kicks layered sound like this. Really quickly, the reason I ended up layering my kicks instead of just using one kick is because I really like that texture from the first kick, but I also really like the bottom end from that second kick. So for you beginner boom bap makers out there, you might want to EQ at least one of them before you layer. So after I added the kick, I moved on to the snare. Let's listen to what it sounds like. So for this one, I went with a hard hitting snare to complement the kicks. As y'all can see for the snare too, none of the snares are quantized. So one of the effects I use for the snare is this Effector Silencer. It's a free plugin. For those of y'all always on the hunt for free plugins, the only thing I ended up doing is bringing up that threshold a little bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and preview the snare before and after this effect. So without the effect, this is what the snare originally sounded like. And with the effect turned on, so as y'all can tell, that's a pretty big difference. That first version of the snare just has a lot of noise, which would be cool in some cases, but for this beat, I didn't want all that noise, which is why I turned on this Effector Silencer plugin. Let's go ahead and listen to what we have so far, which is the kicks and the snare. So as y'all can tell, I haven't even added the hi-hat yet, but there's already so much swing to the beat. So after I added the kicks and snare, it was time to move on to the hi-hats. So let's go ahead and listen to what those sound like. So once again, y'all, going back to swing, a lot of these hi-hats are not quantized. The only thing I did to the hi-hats is deduct that low end all the way up to 90 hertz. So really quickly, I'm gonna play the kicks, snare, and hi-hats. Let's listen to what they sound like together. So after I added my drums, I wanted to add just a little bit of texture to the beat. So what I ended up doing is adding this lo-fi noise. So what I ended up doing to this lo-fi noise is just adding this fruity limiter. This fruity limiter is actually acting as a sidechain. As you guys can see right over here, it's routed to the drums. So basically anytime the kick or snare plays, the lo-fi noise ducks down. And the last thing I did is adjust these EQ knobs right over here. So now that I had my drums, I wanted them to knock a lot harder. So what I ended up doing is routing them to one bus channel, and I added some effects. So let's go ahead and start digging into those. So the first plugin I use is this J37 by Waves. What I ended up doing is just going to this full reset knob right over here. I actually didn't adjust any settings because I just wanted to add just a little bit of saturation that comes naturally with having this plugin on. And then right after that, I added this G Master Bus Compressor by Waves once again. And the way I'm using this compressor is pretty much just gluing everything together. So as you guys can see, I have my attack setting all the way turned up and I have my release turned up to 0.3. So with the effects turned off, this is what the drums sound like. And with the effects turned on, So after I had my hard hitting drums, it was time to move to the most important part of the beat, which is chopping up the sample. So let's go ahead and listen to what the sample chops sound like solo. So the VST I used to chop up this sample is none other than Serato Sample. For those of y'all who don't have it, it's a must. What I ended up doing to the sample is just pitching it down by 3 semitones. So I'm gonna quickly play the part of the sample that I chopped. So let's go ahead and take a listen to that.
The sun leaves the sky.
And these are the chops I played. So let's go ahead and start digging into the effects. So the first thing I added, again, how I did it with the lo-fi noise, I added this fruity limiter, but I'm just using it as a sidechain. And another thing I ended up doing is adding this G Master bus compressor, just as a light compressor, just to catch a little bit of the transients from the sample. And then finally, I deducted that low end up until 99 Hertz. So once I had my main sample chops for the beat, I just wanted a little section before the turnaround at the end of 8 bars. So this is what I ended up chopping. So I'm gonna quickly play the part of the sample where I took these chops from. And these are what the chops look like. And then finally, as far as the sample chops go, I wanted to keep the beat just a little bit interesting. So I ended up adding these little chops that are kind of tucked in the beat. So with those little chops, along with the main sample chops, let's listen to what they sound like together. So as y'all can see, they're pretty tucked back in the mix, but it's just to make the beat just a little bit more interesting. So after chopping up all my samples, it was time to add a bass line, but I really wanted to just keep it very simple. So let's go ahead and take a listen to what the bass sounds like. So as y'all can see, it's just literally just one note that plays throughout the beat. I'm gonna go ahead and play it in context along with the drums. So let's listen to what they sound like together. And another important thing to note here, guys, as y'all can see, this bass line itself, even though it's just one note, is not quantized. Again, going back to getting that authentic boom bap swing. The only effect I added to this bass line is the C6 compressor by Waves. Pretty much all it's doing is just ducking down a little part of the section where the kick is supposed to play so that they don't clash together. And then finally, getting to the last part of the beat, I wanted to make the beat just a little bit more interesting. So I ended up adding these DJ scratches. So in context with everything else, let's listen to what the scratches sound like. So that was pretty much it for this beat right here. I'm gonna go ahead and play the beat in full so you guys can hear everything in context. So that was it for this week's beat breakdown video. That's how y'all can make an authentic boom bap beat with swing. If y'all gained any type of insight from this video, please leave a comment. Please subscribe. It's really going to help the channel grow. If y'all are new to the channel, I put out 4 videos a month. That's 2 beat breakdowns. I break down my own samples, and I also do a sample flip challenge. So I'm going to catch y'all next week for the sample flip challenge video. Until then, stay blessed.